Hello and welcome to my video where I'm going to show you how to make a small pumpkin ornament out of copper wire. Obviously this is a good project for Halloween or autumn and it's really quick and easy to make. The main thing that you're going to need is copper wire. I used some 22 gauge copper wire, which is about 0.6 millimeters in diameter. I used no more than 15 meters of it, in fact it was probably closer to about 12 meters. And if you end up using a thicker wire, then you'll need less of it. You'll also need a cardboard toilet roll tube, some scissors, some super glue, some wire cutters, some kind of pliers to shape the wire. I used some jewellery pliers, and any other decorative elements that you want to use. I personally used a very small scrap of leather, some yarn and some foil tape. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing you need to do is make a small cut at either end of the toilet roll tube. Like so. And these cuts should line up. Then I use my pliers just to bend the tip of the copper wire over. This is just to get rid of the sharp point at the end of the wire and make it more pleasant to handle. Next, push this end of the wire into the slot at the end of the tube. You want to have about 5 centimeters of wire at least inside the tube. And then all you do is wrap the copper wire around the tube. I find it easiest to move the reel of copper wire around the tube like so. However, you could also take the wire between your thumb and forefinger and just carefully wind it very close to the tube. The aim is to wrap the wire as smoothly as possible around the tube. However, it's still likely that you'll get a little kink in the wire occasionally, and you can just straighten that out with your pliers. Try and keep the wire wraps as close to each other as possible, but also try not to overlap them. Once you've done a handful of wraps, then push them together towards the end of the tube, just to keep them all compact. I continued wrapping until I almost reached the other end of the tube. I then cut the wire and I made sure that there was at least 5 centimeters of wire left over to go inside the tube. You can bend over the end of the wire as well, just to make sure that you don't have a sharp point. The result should look like this. You then need to cut another piece of copper wire about 4 times the length of the tube. I then pinched the toilet roll tube to make a groove going from one slot at one end to the other slot at the other end. Then push the wire through the groove underneath the wire coil. Twist the ends of the wire together in order to keep them in place. Whilst you're twisting the wire a few times, make sure that you're bringing the wire coil together as tightly as possible. Then wrap this wire a few times around the center of the wire coil. And then bend the wire so it sticks up like so. What you want is wire wrapped around the center of the coil and then 2 pieces of wire sticking upwards out of the coil. Then take the other 2 ends of the wire that are in the slots of the tube and then twist these together as well. And also wrap them around the center of the coil. You can now remove the tube. You can then manipulate the wire to make a nice circular pumpkin shape. I then use my pliers to shape one of the pieces of wire that's sticking up into a leaf. So I made a bend in the wire, then shaped a curve, did another bend, another curve, and then I wrapped the wire around the wire stem of the leaf. You can obviously do whatever leaf shape you like. I then doubled up the other piece of wire by bending it in half, and then using it to wrap around both pieces of wire to make the stem. Obviously, you can shape this stem and leaf however you like. At this point, you can choose to add a clear coating to your copper in order to try and keep it shiny, because copper likes to oxidize and darken in colour over time. So some kind of clear varnish would be perfect. Of course, you can keep the pumpkin like this if you prefer. However, I'm going to add a couple of embellishments. I first covered the stem in some pink foil tape, and then I cut out a piece of cream leather in the shape of the leaf. I added super glue to the leaf shape in the copper wire and stuck the leather onto the back. I bought a small job lot of leather offcuts on eBay, but if you don't have leather, you can use something like felt instead. I then decided I didn't like the look of the tape, so I added some super glue over the top, and then I wrapped some chunky yarn around the stem. I think the yarn made it look a lot more cozy. And that's it, your pumpkin is now complete. I really hope you've enjoyed this project, and thank you very much for watching.